All right, so we got a couple of wordy problems now that we have the basics of our trig down. And in number 6, it says that a shipmate set a boat to sail exactly 27 degrees northeast from the dock. All right, so hopefully you guys are familiar with never eat shredded wheat, northeast, southwest. Okay, just a way of remembering that northeast is in this direction, and you guys can see the arrows in our picture heading in that direction as well from the 27-degree angle. Okay, and it says after traveling 120 miles, so you can see that labeled in our picture as well, the shipmate realized he had misunderstood the directions from the captain. He was supposed to set sail going directly east. Okay, so take a look at what direction east is in, okay, which in this picture is this way. He was supposed to travel that way instead of 120 miles northeast. Okay, so it says to the nearest mile, and so there's our rounding directions. Okay. How many miles will a shipmate have to travel directly south before he is directly east of the dock? Okay, so this shipmate should have went along the blue path. He didn't. He went along the red path and he got to this point up here. Okay, so now they want to know how many miles does he have to travel directly south. Okay, so taking a look at our picture, south is going down. And so they want to know now that he's up here, he has to travel south to get to where he was supposed to be. And so we're figuring how many miles south does he have to travel? And so I'm going to go ahead and put my X on that side of my right triangle. I'm going to go back and take a look at the 27-degree angle that I was given, where my stick person is going to stand and read from. Okay. That, according to that stick person, that X side that I just marked, the side I'm solving for, is my opposite side because it's opposite my stick person. The 120 is across from the right angle in the picture, and therefore that's my hypotenuse side. Okay. And now that I have my two sides of my triangle figured out, I'm going to think about SOHCAHTOA, or some old horse caught another horse, take your notes away. Okay. And if you look at the two pieces I labeled, O, which is my opposite side, the side I'm solving for, and H, the side I have, which is 120, O and H is our sine function. Okay, so now I'm going to write down my formula. So it's sine theta equals O over H. I keep sine. I take out my theta, realize that theta represents the angle measure, which is 27 degrees, equal to my opposite side, which is X, over my hypotenuse side, which is 120. Remember, when you're solving for a side using trig, you create a proportion, okay, and then cross multiply. 1 times x is x, equal to 120 times the sine of 27 degrees. Okay, type it in, 120 times sine 27. Make sure that you're in degree mode. Okay, and x comes out to be 54.47885 ... Remember the directions up here in the problem said nearest mile, which is this 4. Look next door, and we end up with x equals 54 miles. So because he misunderstood the captain, he has to travel an additional 54 miles to get to his destination. Okay. All right, so then part B says to the nearest mile, how many more miles did the shipmate travel by going the wrong direction as compared to going directly east? Well, we have a problem. We don't know how far he would have traveled along the blue path, which is directly east, okay, to figure out how many more. We don't have the right answer to compare it with. So we're going to go ahead and have to solve for it. So I'm going to do a couple things. Okay, one thing is I'm going to redraw my picture. Okay, I'm going to keep this 120 just because that's what was given to me. I'm going to keep the 27 degrees. Okay, I'm going to still be reading from the 27 degrees. Okay, but now I'm trying to figure out this right here on the bottom. Okay, so because this is my 27-degree angle, that y piece is now my adjacent side. Okay, and my 120 is still my hypotenuse side, but now I'm going to be using cosine. Okay, A and H make cosine. I don't have to use trig. Based on my answer from part A, I now have two sides of my right triangle. I have the side being 54. I have the side being 120. And I could go ahead and use a squared plus b squared equals c squared. However, we've been using that since Unit 2. Okay. For this year, you've been using Pythagorean theorem in previous years. I would much rather practice trig with you instead of practicing the Pythagorean theorem again. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. And so now that I have my picture labeled with what I'm finding, I'm going to go ahead and use cosine. So we got cosine theta equals A over H. Remember to always write down the formula. Okay, keep cosine cosine. Replace your theta with your angle, which is 27 degrees, equal to your adjacent side, which is y, over your hypotenuse side, which is 120. Again, solving for a side of a right triangle with trig, we make a proportion so that we can cross multiply, and we end up with y equals 120 times the cosine of 27 degrees. We grab our calculator, we type it in just like we wrote it, and out comes 106.9207 dot, dot, dot. And that is not our answer. Remember the question said how many more miles? Okay, did the shipmate travel by going the wrong direction as comparing to going the right direction? So we have to remember not only did he travel 120 miles, but then he traveled an additional, 54. Okay, so he traveled 174 miles. Okay, he could have just traveled 106.9207 dot, dot, dot. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take the 174 miles he did travel, and we're going to subtract the 106.9207 dot, dot, dot number, okay, miles, and the result is 67.0792 dot, dot, dot. Okay, and we'll just go nearest mile. And he traveled an additional 67 more miles by going the wrong direction. So if you're ever driving a boat, make sure you listen to your directions so you don't have to travel more. All right, let's take a look at number 7. Last one. In number 7, it says from a point 120 meters from a building, Serena measures the angle between the ground and the top of a building and finds that it measures 41 degrees. What is the height of the building? Okay, so hopefully you know that height is straight up and down. Okay, and they've labeled that with y. And according to where my angle is or my stick person is, okay, that y side, the height of the building, is actually my opposite side because it's opposite my stick person or opposite the angle I'm reading from. Okay, the 120 is my adjacent side. Okay, because I know what side my hypotenuse is, but there's nothing on it, so I'm not going to label it. Okay, I'm going to think of some old horse caught another horse, taking oats away, so I can see which trig function uses the two pieces I labeled, which are O and A, and that trig function is tangent. So we're going to write down tangent theta equals O over A. Always write down the formula, then fill it in. Okay, so we keep tangent, tangent. Remember, theta represents my angle, which is my stick person standing at, which is 41 degrees. We keep the equal sign, and the O comes out, and the Y goes in. Okay. Over my adjacent side, which is 120. So the A comes out, the 120 goes in. Again, solving for a side using trig, we use a proportion to cross multiply, and we end up with Y equals 120 times the tangent of 41 degrees. We grab our calculator and we go ahead and type it in. And so we end up with 104.3144 dot, dot, dot. Let's take a look. They said nearest meter, which would be the 4, but look at the 3 and it's not going to change it. So we're going to stay with y equals 104. And it looks like our label would be in meters. And that is how we use trig. All right. So hopefully that helps. And we'll do a little bit more on the following day. And then we're going to learn how that we can solve for an angle as well using trig. Okay. All right, guys. Have a good one.